Everybody, welcome to the Observing Fullerton Podcast. We are greeted by Jesse LaTour, the Fullerton Observer editor. And today we are going to be talking about the primary election results and also city council happenings. Happenings? Okay.
Happenings. Yeah. Hello, Adrian. Well, first I want to say what a pleasure it is to be enjoying these Fullerton Observer mugs. If you, how can people get a mug? What do they have to do to get a mug? We have mugs.
I believe you just contact the email, or we have it on our website.
Oh, isn't it like if they want to advertise on the podcast, then they could get a mug?
You do get a special goodie bag if you do advertise with the podcast.
Yeah.
So go do that if you guys want these awesome mugs. They hold any liquid.
Any liquid at all, except maybe certain acids.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Anyway, all right. So first off, we were going to talk about the primary election results. So on June 7th, there was the California primary, and so I think it's important to point out that the results are not necessarily final. So votes are still being counted technically, and they won't actually be certified, at least for the state ones, until July 15th. Now, some of the races are probably pretty, we're able to call. But anyway, so I'm going to start with talking about some of the statewide races, like governor, etc. I'm not going to talk too much in detail about those because we're more of a local newspaper and a local podcast, but I thought I would just, for your edification, point out who's likely winning and who's leading in some of the statewide races. And also you can check the latest results of these statewide races at electionresults.sos.ca.gov. That's the Secretary of State's website, and they update the election results. Okay, so statewide results. So first off, governor, it looks like Gavin Newsom is going to win pretty handily over the main Republican challenger, Brian Dahl. He's currently at 56% of the votes, and Brian Dahl is at about 18%. So looks like Newsom has a pretty handy lead there. Now with these state races, the top two vote getters do go on to the November election. So Newsom hasn't necessarily won the race yet, although it looks like he probably will in November as well. But
there could be new voters.
I suppose, yeah. I mean, California is pretty blue overall, I think. So
along with his recall, he got more of a percentage on his recall than he did on his initial run, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I think you're right. That didn't work. Okay, and then let's see. Lieutenant Governor, similarly, Eleni Kounalakis is winning pretty. These are Democrats. So Newsom's a Democrat, Eleni a Democrat, winning 52.7% of the vote over her Republican contender, Angela Underwood Jacobs. Again, they'll both go to the November election, but it's a pretty good indicator of who's likely to win with some of these. Similarly, Secretary of State Shirley Weber at 59% right now. And this is as of June 16th. Today is June 16th when we're recording this. This will actually come out on, I think, in a few days. So these results might be slightly different, but anywho, looks like Shirley Weber's winning in Secretary of State. Her and Republican Rob Bernofsky will go to the November election. Controller, in this case, this is kind of a unique. So mostly at the state level, it's been Democrats who are winning these different positions, with the exception of Controller. Controller, the Republican Lonnie Chen, is winning, has a larger percentage, 37.2, over the Democrat Malia Cohen at 22.5. Now, of course, they'll both go to the November election. Top two vote getters for treasurer, Fiona Ma, with 57.5% over Republican Jack Guerrero, 21.9%. Attorney General, this one's actually, so Rob Bonta, the Democrat, has by far the highest percentage of votes, 54.6%. But there are two Republicans who are kind of close right now. So because votes are still being counted, I think it's possible that it could go to either, because only the top two advance, to either Nathan Hochman has 18.5%, or Eric Early, who has 16.6%. Similarly, with insurance commissioner, let's see, the top person is the Democrat Ricardo Lara, but then the then actually there's a Republican at 18%, and then another Democrat at 17.8%. So that one, it could either be two Democrats or a Democrat and Republican. In California, it does.
Mark Levine,
I think. So in California, it's the top two, no matter what their party is. So you could have two Democrats running against each other in November. Superintendent of Public Instruction. This one's also, Tony Thurmond has by far the most votes, but then there are three other contenders who each have about 11%. Lance Christensen, George Yang, and Annie Long. So it could be potentially any of those. Board of Equalization. What does the Board of Equalization do? Do you know?
Off the top of my head, I don't quite know. My political science teacher is probably going to be extremely mad at me for saying that.
Well, that was kind of a trick question because I'm actually not sure either. Okay, well, we should look these things up, right? Anyway, Board of Equalization, 4th District, looks like the Democrat Mike Schaefer is at 36%, and followed by a Democrat David Dodson and Republican Dennis Bilodeau, who are pretty close. So those second two might give Schaefer's opponent in November for the Board of Equalization. Next, we get to U.S. Senator. So it looks like Alex Padilla, the Democrat, is winning pretty much higher percentage than his closest Republican contender,
Mark Muser.
Padilla has 54%, Muser for about 15%. So, but they'll both go to the November election, but it looks like Padilla's got it locked up.
November elections also do get a lot more voters than primary.
That's true. Yep. All right, now getting to some local offices. Well, technically still state, but these are local people who represent us at the local level. So we were talking about how with the new redistricting, it redrew the maps for congressional districts, state senate districts, state assembly districts, and also even city council districts. So we have newly created districts for U.S. representatives in Congress. Fullerton is split between District 45, which is like North Fullerton, and District 46, which is like South Fullerton.
Mm-hmm.
In the District 45 race, it's kind of close, but the Republican Michelle Steele is currently leading with a 48.5% over the Democrat Jay Chen with a 42.8%. Now, they'll both advance to the November election.
That one's going to be a very close race.
It'll be a close race, yeah. Orange County is in some cases kind of purple, right?
Yep.
And that race will be interesting to watch. For the 46th congressional district, which is like South Fullerton, it looks like Democrat Lou Correa is going to win. He's got currently about 49% over the closest Republican challenger, Christopher Gonzalez, at like about 16%.
An incumbent, correct?
Lou Correa is an incumbent, although I think it's a newly created district. But yeah, Correa's been in Congress for a while.
Yeah.
Okay, so that will be interesting. So Fullerton could be represented in Congress by a Republican and a Democrat, or we'll see. That would be interesting. Moving to state senator. So for the 34th state senate district, we have Democrat Tom Umberg with a lead over the Republican Rhonda Shader. They will both advance, to the November election. For state assembly, we had Philip Chen in the 59th district. So this is kind of like northwest Fullerton. He ran unopposed. So, but it was funny. There were two people who got like a small handful of votes. I think they were write-in candidates, but it looks like it's going to be Philip Chen, who is a Republican.
They got their family to write them in.
Yeah, yeah, a little write-in campaign. But yeah, it looks like it's going to be Philip Chen for the 59th district. He's a Republican. And then for the 67th district, which is kind of like south, I guess more like southwest Fullerton, Sharon Quirk Silva, who is an incumbent, although not for this district, right? So this
Yes.
is a newly created district.
I believe Fullerton got split in half for this one, if I'm correct.
Yep, it got split basically in half for Congress, State Senate, and State Assembly, all of those. So
Even though she is a very popular candidate here in Fullerton, it was still. I was wondering whether or not she was going to win for this one.
yeah, she's well. Her so
Or
her,
the numbers are still coming in,
They're
along
still-
with, like you said.
yeah, numbers are still coming in. But she in terms of percentage of votes, Sharon Quirk Silva, who is a Democrat, currently has 47 or about 48% of the vote, and then the closest Republican challenger, Sue Yu, has about 39%. So they'll both, advance again to the November election, but looks like Sharon Quirk Silva has a pretty good advantage at this point.
That's true.
All right, now let's move to even more local, so county offices. So these races are, some of them are actually decided by the primary election. So unlike the state offices where
It does go into November. These are one and done.
Many of these are one and done, unless in some cases somebody doesn't get 50% plus one of the vote, then it can go to a runoff. Then it goes to a runoff. So for county offices, you want to go to ocvote.com. So that's the website where they post pretty much every day. I think they update the votes that are being counted and coming in. And I think as of yesterday, there were still about 50,000 votes yet to count. So we'll get the kind of boring stuff out of the way first. So there were several judges that were up for election, and
too many.
too many judges, but we'll just go over them real quick. So we'll just say who the winners are, and then there's one, I believe, that could go to a runoff, and I'll mention that one when we get to it. So, all right, so judge, we'll just say it's office number 5. Looks like Claudia Alvarez is the winner in that one. Office number 9, Christopher Duff is the winner. Office number 11, Sean Nelson. He's a familiar name locally. He was on city council, and I think works with the district attorney's office. Then let's see, Office 22, we got Braham Baitia. He won that office. Number 28, Eric Scarborough. And number 30, this is the one that looks like it's going to go to a runoff because Michelle Bell
and Peggy Huang.
Michelle Bell has about 37%. Huang has about 34%. So again, they need to get that 50% plus one.
And it looks like the reason for that is just because there was a lot of candidates for that office.
Yeah. Yep. Office 33, Steve McGreevy. 45, Israel Claustro. Okay, and then we go to Board of Education. All right, so now we're getting into some of the more interesting ones. So Board of Education, Trustee Area 4. This was another one of those ones, to be decided by the primary. It looks like at this point, Tim Shaw is at 50%. Over his opponent, Paulette Chafee, who's currently at about 33%. But it looks like, Shaw has got a pretty sizable lead. That's kind of contentious. I mean, that whole Board of Education, there's been a lot of kind of controversy around that regarding like Tim Shaw, resigned from his seat on
the city council, correct?
Yeah, and then the board, he was off the board and then on the board, and then
got reappointed by the board.
Yeah.
It's
complicated. Currently, Tim Shaw is leading pretty handily for that race. But so Tim Shaw, I guess, sort of at a policy level, the thing on the Board of Education is you have certain folks who are more kind of pushing charter schools and stuff, and then you have, of which Tim Shaw is one of those folks, and then Paulette Chafee, his opponent, and then other folks on the board are a little less charter school focused. Although I just looked on Voice of OC, the news site, a great news site, and they do really good election coverage. And it looks like Becky Gomez, who was on the Board of Education, just resigned over some kind of a lawsuit or something. So
Really?
that's interesting news. I don't have too much to report on that, but you can read the story on Voice of OC. So it looks like Shaw's winning for Board of Ed. Then we have County Superintendent of Schools. It looks like Al Mijares is leading pretty handily, 55% over his opponent, Stephen Bean. Sheriff Don Barnes, he ran unopposed, so he'll be the next sheriff. Treasurer Tax Collector Sherry Friedenreich also ran unopposed. That's kind of weird, right? You feel like
I could have put my name in there.
for the sheriff or tax collector?
Tax collector, any of them, if they're running unopposed.
Sheriff Adrian, there's a new sheriff in town. This is an interesting one. Okay, so county supervisor. Okay, so for the 4th district, so that's our district that includes Fullerton, it's a super duper close race, and
All of them, all around the 30% mark.
yeah, right now, Sonny Park who is currently the mayor of Buena Park, is leading with 37.8 about percent. Pretty close behind Doug Chafee with about 32%, and then those are both Democrats, although Sonny Park, interestingly, even though Doug Chafee is the incumbent, Sonny Park was actually endorsed by the Democratic Party of Orange County, so that, I think, gave her an advantage. It was pretty interesting that they chose not to appoint Chafee. There's another good article in Voice of OC from yesterday about this race and why the Democratic Party chose to endorse Park over Chafee. But it looked like it was going to, be Park versus Chafee in a runoff in November, but the Republican Steve Vargas
Right behind
Chafee, right at his heels. He's at about 32% as well. As of yesterday, they were separated by a margin of about 600 votes, right? So with 50,000 votes yet to be counted in the county, a margin of 600 votes is a very tiny margin, and so it could be Park versus Chafee or Park versus Vargas.
It's a 0.70% difference.
Yeah, which is surprising because we did do some reporting. I mean, Chafee is the incumbent, which
Does give him the edge.
gives it an advantage. But we did a story on kind of like campaign finance, and Chafee had donated a lot of his own money to his campaign.
I believe it was $800,000.
No.
Or was that
600? That was combined with his wife Paulette.
It was $600,000.
Yeah. So about 600 over the last year. So that's pretty interesting. So it looks like we could have a new different supervisor in that seat. All right, and then let's see some of the other county races that are decided. Claude Parrish won for assessor. Andrew N. Hamilton ran unopposed for auditor controller. Hugh Nguyen has handily won for clerk recorder. And last but not least, district attorney. This was an interesting race. So Todd Spitzer looks like won pretty handily over Pete Hardin, his challenger. Spitzer, even though these races are supposed to be nonpartisan, Spitzer is a Republican. Pete Hardin is a Democrat, and they definitely had some differences in policies that were highlighted in their campaigns and stuff. I would say Hardin, more kind of progressive policies in terms of like cash bail and things like that, and Spitzer more kind of conservative in that regard and other regards. Interestingly, they had like 3 candidate forums,
and I believe Todd Spitzer only went to one, if I'm correct.
Yeah, he only went to one, and it was one that was actually moderated by a campaign donor. So anyway, but yeah, he won. I mean, Spitzer's currently got about 63% of the vote over Pete Hardin with 21%. I think Spitzer did have the advantage as the incumbent, and he just has a lot of name recognition for that. But also Spitzer, I don't know, not to focus too much on this, but like, he faced some controversy recently where there was a judge who said that he had violated like a state law. I think it was like the like a racial equality law over some comments that he had made about sentencing an African American man, and so he apparently made some racially insensitive comments. But that was kind of a news story over the last few months during the campaign, but apparently didn't have too much of an impact. Okay, I think that is that's about it for that. Sorry, I don't have too much commentary on that, but
I mean, they're just election results. There's not much we can actually talk about it.
Well, if I was Jody Balma, I would.
Oh yeah, Jody would be able to. Shout out to Jody Balma and her podcast as well. We did do a story about her last podcast. We did have a special episode where we were just talking about the up-and-coming elections and trying to inform everybody about it. But right now we are going to be talking about city council happenings. So what's been going on, Jesse?
Yeah, so the last time we talked was like the last time I was on the podcast was back in like April, right? So I thought in addition to talking about election results, I would give a little update because I covered the Fullerton City Council. This is not necessarily election related, although those are elected people, but I'm going to focus more on like what some of the interesting votes or new things that have been going on. I'm going to go just kind of like I guess sort of chronologically, so starting in kind of like mid-April, here's a kind of a brief summary of some of those key votes or issues that came up. So back in, I guess it was April 19th of their meeting, one interesting thing, we did kind of a longer story on this, was there's this new state law that requires that cities make publicly available all of their police military equipment. And so
what does it mean, make it publicly available?
They have to like include it online, and then the city council has to like approve it.
Okay.
And so it was a pretty quick, like not much discussion, item on the council agenda. But then I took the liberty of like going on the website and actually looking up all of the police military equipment that we have, and it's like kind of a lot. And so I mean, technically. So not to go too much in detail, but like the city, they're clear that they haven't actually received equipment directly from the military. However, the new state law recategorizes what's considered military equipment. So they had to list all of these things like their armored vehicle, like the Bearcat that they have, like the SWAT team has, things like riot control, like launchers and like drones. And anyway, so if you're interested, you can go to FullertonObserver.com, and you can find the article on there that basically just lists pretty much all of the police military equipment that the city has. And the purpose of the law was so that the public can have a say in whether they think it's appropriate for the police department to have all of this equipment, which some of it's like kind of gnarly stuff, in my opinion.
You'd probably see it in a video game.
Yeah. Moving forward to on May 3rd, so I wanted to mention that we have a new city manager in Fullerton, Eric Levitt. He started in May, and we should probably interview him at some point. He'd be a good guy.
Yeah, he seems nice. I met him once.
Yeah, get to know him. Also, last time we were talking about, I had said that it looked like the Fullerton Fire Chief, Adam Lozier, was going to be going to Brea, but in fact, he's staying with Fullerton, or he's basically, Fullerton's fire chief. Now, it still looks like the Fullerton Fire Department is going to be considering joining the Orange County Fire Authority. I'm not sure when that decision is coming up on the council agenda, but I did want to point out that we still have Mr. Lozier as our fire chief. Oh, so we were talking last time about the city council potentially leasing out the Maple Neighborhood Center, and at their May 17th meeting, they voted to not lease out the Maple Neighborhood Center to the proposed nonprofit called the Friendly Center. And this was because, folks from the neighborhood, showed up and basically said that it's important that the center be available as a rental facility for people to have for like weddings, quinceañeras, and other kind of community events.
Yeah.
And the nonprofit wasn't able to accommodate that, and so it looks like as of now the Maple Neighborhood Center will remain city run, but it doesn't mean that they're gonna start adding back services there. I mean, I think they still need to figure out exactly
The exact costs on how much it's going to cost to operate everything.
Yeah, or if they're going to go with maybe another different nonprofit or some kind of other agreement or something. But at least as of now, it's not being rented out to.
And a huge thing with the rental thing is that a lot of the people needed an affordable venue for, like you said, quinceañera weddings, and a lot of people did say, why don't they just go to the community center? But the community center isn't really all that affordable. That was a lot of the public comments saying that. I believe someone said that. Kitty?
Might have been Kitty Jaramillo. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it provides an affordable place for people who aren't super wealthy to be able to rent out a facility, and it's a nice facility.
And it's right down the street from where people live and everything.
So then moving on to the most recent council meeting, which was June 7th. Couple of things. So there were a lot of public comments from members of the community and also downtown business owners about the orange barriers on Wilshire, the walk on Wilshire / Bike Boulevard. There was a lot of people expressing displeasure with the city putting these orange barriers along Wilshire to accommodate bicycles, because it was, part of the Bike Boulevard, which was created through grant funding, a few years ago. But they're pretty ugly. It seems like nobody likes these barriers.
But they're orange, and we live in Orange County.
It's pretty industrial.
Yeah.
But so a lot of people spoke, including some of the business owners who use the outdoor dining on Wilshire, and the city manager was responsive. He said that they've heard, the concerns of the community, and he said they're looking into alternatives and working toward replacing the orange barriers with something, some other type of barrier that's hopefully less
Venisor.
industrial looking. Yeah. Also, at the last council meeting, June 7th, council approved the 2022-23 budget. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail on that, but it does include some of the cuts that were from the last budget. So the 2.5% cuts are carrying into this budget, as well as $3.8 million in basically from holding certain positions vacant. So we're still, even though the city is hiring people back,
they're not they're not full time, if I'm correct, right?
No, they are.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
But I don't want to give the wrong information. But it does include the cuts that were also voted on for the last budget. The last thing, and this is something that's coming up on the June 21st agenda. So I guess when you guys hear this, this will come out on June 20th. The following day is a big housing development that's been kind of controversial that the council will evidently be voting on, called the Pines at Sunrise Village. And so it's
And why was it controversial?
So a lot of the proposed development would involve basically destroying most of the shopping center, the Sunrise Village Shopping Center, which is over on like Euclid and Rosecrans. And there's a lot of, like Korean-owned businesses, a lot of, local businesses that have been there a long time, popular with the neighborhood. Neighbors felt like the new owners of the property were kind of letting it, like not keeping it up because they were hoping to do this housing thing.
Yeah.
Also, a lot of the neighbors felt like they don't like the density of it, and they feel like it's out of keeping with the neighborhood, etc. And so they had like a petition, physical petition, and also online petition in opposition to the development. So we'll see what council ultimately decides on. It seems like, from what I've heard council members say, that there's probably a majority of council members who will vote for the project, but I'm sure the neighbors will continue to show up and advocate for their position on that as well.
Also, to keep in mind that we are getting asked by the state for more housing, right?
This is true. Yep, that's
the units that we need per county or per city.
Yeah, the regional housing needs assessment. Fullerton for the next 8 years is supposed to build 13,000 new units. So, yeah, I mean, that would be, I don't want to take a side on the Sunrise Village thing, but that would be an argument, I guess, for more housing. But also, they were saying too, like some of the neighbors were saying that, like, the housing that's going in is not going to be affordable housing. Like,
Yeah.
it's market rate, so pretty expensive.
But just a factor to be played.
Yeah,
Or,
that's probably an argument that people will make in favor of it.
yes.
Like, we need more housing. All right, well, I think that's it. Sorry, if we got anything wrong here, I guess you can edit that.
Yeah, we can do that.
double check the facts. We do our best here. So there's again. So if you want to keep up with the local, the statewide races for election results, again, go to electionresults.sos.ca.gov, and then if you want to follow the local, like, county races, you go to ocvote.gov.com.
Oh, on my end, it's .gov.
Oh, is it? ocvote.gov. You're right. .gov. You got, all right.
Edited the editor.
You got it. Okay, so yeah, ocvote.gov.
And as always, if you guys want to read any of these, more of a in-depth look into the city council notes, just looked at any of the previous issues from the Fullerton Observer. Jesse does a pretty good job on abridging everything.
Trying to sum up, the
summary.
Key,
That's a better word.
Yeah, sort of a bridge summary of some of the key things, and then sometimes I'll expand on things like the military equipment thing. Like, I actually included more in the paper than was actually discussed at the meeting, but usually it's the other way around. But
you always do. Anyways, thank you everybody for listening and or watching, and we'll see you guys next week, I believe. Yes, next week. All right, see you guys.
Take care.